Welcome to the Year of the Movie podcast, the podcast where we talk about movies from the year of the movie 2023. We're your hosts, and we started this podcast because 2023, now 2 years ago,
Wacky.
was a wacky and goofy year for movies. You had 80 for Brady, Strays, what other things that we always list?
65. Barbie,
Oppenheimer. You had a big mix.
Bottoms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we said, this is going to be a year to remember for a decade until the next year of the movie.
And then we forget it and we never talk about it ever again.
If you like this podcast and how organized we clearly are,
yeah,
go ahead and support us on Patreon. Review and rate on wherever you listen to your podcast. Follow us on Instagram. Subscribe on YouTube. Hitting that bell.
smashing like buttons, etc.
All that jazz.
Yeah.
This is the first episode of 2025. Not the year of the movie.
No.
I haven't even heard about new movies, if I'm being honest. That's not true. There is 3 movies that I've heard about.
That's good. Yeah, I feel like I'm still in 2024 movie mind just because it's awards season. So hearing about various movies from last year.
I'm still in 2023.
Oh, I will always be in 2023 mentally and spiritually. But yeah, I don't know. I watched a decent amount of movies over our holiday break. So, it was fun to experience that there are other movies out there, but
Yep.
I'm not keeping up with them.
Well, what movie are we beginning 2025 off with?
We're gonna set the tone.
Oh yeah.
With Godzilla -1.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is the synopsis. Post-war Japan is at its lowest point when a new crisis emerges in the form of a giant monster, baptized in the horrific power of the atomic bomb. That's you don't often get synopses with the word baptize in them, so that's fun.
It's a period piece Godzilla movie.
So what were your first impressions when you heard about this movie? And then just a general icebreaker question I'm testing out.
Yeah.
You got any thoughts on Godzilla?
That's a good icebreaker question. I'm excited to hear all of your discoveries and your new groups.
Yeah. If that doesn't start a conversation, then I don't know what will.
My impressions when I heard about this movie, I was honestly confused because there's the other Godzilla franchise happening. And I know that's the Americanized Godzilla.
I got a little info on it. I didn't do a huge deep dive into the Godzilla franchise because this is already 7 pages of notes, and that is excessive.
Well, we can't be here for 7 pages.
Most of that is the plot summary.
Okay.
So we'll be fine.
And my thoughts on Godzilla?
Yeah.
I've never cared. I've just never...
Not your thing?
Ever cared.
Yeah.
I like Gamera. Because of Mystery Science Theater 3000. Gamera is really neat. Gamera is filled with meat. We all love Gamera. What were your first impressions when you heard about this movie? And icebreaker question for you.
Yeah?
Got any thoughts on Godzilla?
Ooh. I haven't considered. I don't know when I heard about this movie. It might have just been at the Oscars, or like when Oscars announcements were coming out, and I was like, oh yeah, there was a Godzilla movie. I don't know. I don't keep tabs on Godzilla.
He keeps tabs on you.
Yeah. He's easy when you're sleeping.
Godzilla claws.
Yeah, it's one of those franchises that has just kind of missed me. I like the idea of Godzilla, and I think the history is interesting, and the various themes that it represents are interesting. It's funny to me to compare like the origins of it with then like Godzilla versus King Kong and like just big monster fighting movies. I don't know. It's not a huge thing that occupies part of my brain, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was interested in seeing this movie because we are making ourselves go through 2023 movies. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that would be a fun one.
It's the first foreign film, like, purely, right? That we've covered on this podcast?
Maybe.
I mean, nothing was in English.
In the sense that nothing was in English, yeah. I don't know. In terms of like the production company responsible, then than our previous movie Hitmen, that was a UK movie, but
Oh.
yeah,
Okay.
not American.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not for...
non-English movie. Yeah. So I didn't really do a trailer breakdown for it. It's just
Godzilla.
it's Godzilla. There's a lot of focus on the massive destruction.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like teasing Godzilla images before you see a full body shot, and then just establishing that this is set in post-war Japan. Yeah. So the movie,
Mm-hmm.
the cast,
Here we go.
you got this.
Ryanosuke Kamiki as Koichi Shigeshima, pilot.
I wrote those for us to remember.
Gotcha.
Everyone.
Manami Hamabe as Noriko Oishi, Sakura Ando as Sumiko Ota, Munataka? Oh my god.
Munetaka.
Aoki as Sosaku Tachibana, Yuki Yamada as Shiro Mitsushima, oh god, it's the Takas really get me.
Yeah.
Hidetaka Yoshioka as Kinji Noda, Kuronosuke Sasaki as Seiji Akitsu, and Sei Nagatani as Akiko.
She's
Akiko.
yeah, a tiny child. Yeah, so the plot. We'll go through this.
The plot is a Godzilla movie. You get the plot. You know Godzilla, it's that. And I'm not saying it's bad. I actually admire it for it being a Godzilla movie.
Uh-huh.
But it's a Godzilla movie.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll get there. So, not saying it's bad. It's impressive in a lot of ways. And, the plot. Okay. I guess stop me whenever you want. So, it's 1945.
What?
And near the end of World War II, and there's a young kamikaze pilot who's Shikishima. He lands his plane for repairs on Odo Island. There's a mechanic, Tachibana, and his team, and they go over the plane, but they can't find anything wrong with it. Tachibana suspects Shikishima pretended to have an issue with his plane so he wouldn't have to sacrifice himself, and then Shikishima watches the water, feeling things about war, and then he sees a bunch of deep sea fish floating on the surface, and he's like, huh, all right. That night, the crew is surprised by a large dinosaur-like creature that appears on the island. One of the crewmen says the locals have a name for it, Godzilla. Spoiler. Tachibana leads the men to cover to hide from the monster and tells Shikishima to get to his plane because he's the only one who knows how to fire the large guns on board and it's their only chance to take it down. Shikishima gets to the plane, but he's too scared to take the shot. The crew fires at Godzilla and are attacked. Shikishima is knocked unconscious. He wakes up the next day and sees Tachibana organizing the bodies of the other men. They all died. They're the only two survivors. Tachibana is furious at Shikishima, calling him a coward. Tachibana gives him photos of the crew members with their families to remind him of the lives lost. Shikishima returns home, finding that his whole neighborhood was destroyed by the bombing on Tokyo. His parents didn't survive, and his neighbor next door, Sumiko, lost her 3 children. Sumiko says she thought Shikishima died because she knew he was a kamikaze pilot, and she also calls him a coward. Shikishima has intense survivor's guilt. There's some time passes, and Shikishima runs into a woman in town being chased by people calling her a thief. She tells him, "Hold this," and continues running. Shikishima looks down and realizes she handed him a baby. He waits for her to return all day. Eventually, he finds her again, and she admires that he wouldn't let a stranger's baby starve. The woman follows him home and essentially invites herself to stay. Shikishima and the woman, Noriko, learn more about each other and their experiences with the war. Noriko tells him that the baby, Akiko, isn't hers, but that she promised Akiko's dying mother that she'd take care of her. They both lost everything, and they begin to build a life together to provide for Akiko. They have no idea how to take care of a baby, and their neighbor, Sumiko, helps them. Shikishima finally finds work that pays well, but it has an element of danger. He'll be on a team helping to disarm the underwater mines left behind after the war. Noriko doesn't want him to put himself in danger, but he says he's willing to do it for Akiko. Shikishima starts his new job and meets the crew. The captain Akitsu, a former engineer Kenji Noda, that Akitsu calls Doc, and then a young man, Mizushima, who was too young to serve in the war. There's slight tension when Mizushima says if only it just kept going, because he really wanted to fight for his country, and Shikishima tells him to never say that again. But then afterwards, the crew get along well. There's a montage of the passage of time as they all work together. Shikishima is able to pay for a new house construction, and Akiko is growing up. Meanwhile, Godzilla is mutated by the atomic testing. I couldn't find a good transition.
Yeah. Because neither did the film.
It's like a nice personal story, and then, by the way, you're watching a kaiju movie.
Yeah. It's a personal story, and then you get, here's the shot progression.
Yeah.
Boats, the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
A giant bomb goes off, and you get the mushroom.
Yeah.
And then you're underwater, and Godzilla's eye
opens
as the skin starts healing back because it's mutated from the atomic testing.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to a personal story.
Mm-hmm.
That.
Yeah. Okay, so meanwhile, Godzilla is mutated by the atomic testing done by the U.S. at Bikini Atoll, and he begins to destroy ships. The Japanese government decides not to warn the public so they don't cause mass panic. Shikishima has the crew over for dinner one night, and they learn about Akiko and Noriko's stories. Doc says it's nice that they all found each other to create a family, but Shikishima says they aren't a family. He also corrects Akiko when she calls him dad. A short while later, Noriko gets a job in a neighboring city. She says she needs to be independent and not get in the way of Shikishima finding a wife someday. He doesn't say much, but is clearly sad at the idea of her leaving. Later, Shikishima and the crew are given a mission. They've been told to stall Godzilla's approach to Japan, using the mines they collect to attack. Shikishima fills the others in on what he knows about the creature while they wait for his approach. They see fish floating on the water nearby, and Shikishima raises the alarm. Godzilla approaches, and he's grown significantly since the last time Shikishima saw him. He's now big enough to destroy massive ships, where the last time he was just like maybe the size of a building. I don't know. He came on screen and we were like, that's a little Godzilla.
He's pretty small.
Yeah. The other ship in their team is quickly destroyed by Godzilla, leaving them on their own. The group is able to detonate a mine in Godzilla's mouth, which does significant damage, but then they learn that he has the ability to quickly regenerate. The crew is saved by a heavy cruiser ship approaching, but Godzilla also quickly destroys that ship with his atomic breath heat ray. Shikishima passes out from his industries and wakes up later in the hospital, where the others tell him no international aid is coming to help them.
Sorry.
Yeah. Atomic breath heat ray?
Well, no, it sounded like you said he passes out from his industries.
Yeah.
And so now I'm just laughing at someone passing out because he has too many industries. There's the food industry. There's the home industry. Whoa! Sorry. Yeah, atomic heat ray.
Injuries. Yeah. So, no, they're on their own.
Mm-hmm.
Government unreliable, all that good stuff. Shikishima returns home and tells Noriko about his experiences with Godzilla and his struggles with survivor's guilt. Later, he's at home with Akiko and they listen to the radio. There's an emergency announcement that comes on, and Shikishima hears that Godzilla is heading towards the city where Noriko works. We see Noriko on a train, which suddenly stops, and then she turns around and it's Godzilla. He begins his attack. There's massive destruction and tons of people running away. Noriko manages a narrow escape from Godzilla. She's like in a train car in his mouth and then jumps into the water.
I think she's in the train car next to the one in his mouth. So
Yeah.
it's still attached to the one,
But it's still a big
but
drop.
but it ripped in half,
Mm-hmm.
and then she's like hanging from the pole,
Mm-hmm.
and then it gets above water, and she drops and falls into water.
Yeah.
And then we
It cuts to her,
just like casually walking as everyone
or
is.
she's like dazed and
Yeah.
wet, walking down the street.
We don't actually see her getting out of the water.
No.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah. She's wet, walking down the street. And Shikishima reunites with her in the crowd. He came to find her. People watch in awe as Godzilla destroys everything in his path, releasing his atomic breath again. As the shockwave of his heat ray nears them, Noriko pushes Shikishima to safety in between buildings, and she's knocked back by the wave. Shikishima looks around afterwards, and everyone that had been standing with him is now gone. So, like, just a whole crowd of people and buildings and everything gone. Devastated by the loss of Noriko, Shikishima is determined for revenge on Godzilla. Doc tells him and the others in the crew that he's part of a civilian group fed up with the government's inaction, and they've formed an organization to stop Godzilla themselves. They attend a meeting where Doc lays out his plan of quickly sinking Godzilla to the bottom of the ocean where the water pressure will crush him. A few leave the meeting saying they've already given up so much for their country with no guarantee of success, and they can't go through that again. Doc insists this plan doesn't ask anyone to sacrifice themselves for others. Shikishima and the crew stay among a large group of men. Shikishima will fly a fighter plane to guide Godzilla to the part of the ocean deep enough to sink him. They have a plane to salvage, but it needs to be completed before it can fly. Shikishima insists that they get Tachibana to complete the plane. He does because Shikishima has a secret plan to fit the plane with explosives and sacrifice himself to kill Godzilla. Godzilla approaches earlier than expected, but the plan is ready enough. Shikishima leaves Akiko with a note and money for Sumiko, asking her to take care of Akiko when he's gone. We also see Sumiko get a telegram that shocks her. Shikishima gets in the plane, and Tachibana shows him how to arm the bombs. Doc and Akitsu insist on leaving Mizushima behind. He thinks it's because he was too young to be in the war, and they want to leave him out. But in the reality, they're leaving the future of the country in his hands, and he's very sad. The ships and the crew are ready, and Godzilla approaches fast. It seems like it might be too late for the plan to work, but they try anyway and rely on Shikishima to lead the monster to them. Shikishima flies around Godzilla, and the plan is working. He's heading away from Tokyo and back out to sea. They get the cables with the devices that will pull Godzilla down.
Jesus.
I got attacked.
Godzilla's really good, and you choked up.
Yeah. It's just a beautiful monster.
And he's gonna die.
Spoilers. They get the cables with the devices to pull Godzilla down around the monster and execute the plan. He's dragged down to the bottom, but then they have to pull him back up quickly to depressurize him. But then Godzilla removes the flotation device, so they can't pull him up quickly, and they only have the cables on the boats, and they aren't strong enough to do it. And then suddenly, Mizushima appears with a huge group of civilians and tugboats, and they're all willing to help. They attach to the larger ships, and they work together to pull Godzilla up. His body looks worse, but he roars, and it's clear he's still alive. The plan didn't work, and they prepare for his next attack. Shikishima flies overhead as Godzilla prepares his heat ray. He pulls the lever to arm the bombs, and just before he collides with Godzilla's mouth, we see him flick a switch. The bombs explode, destroying Godzilla from the inside, and he crumbles back into the ocean. The crew celebrate, but are devastated that Shikishima sacrificed himself. Then we see a flashback of Tachibana going over the plane controls, and he tells Shikishima he installed an ejection seat. Tachibana encourages him to finally let go of his guilt and live. The crew looks up and sees the parachute, and they celebrate Shikishima's survival. They all get back to land. Everyone is celebrating the group. Sumiko arrives holding out the telegram for Shikishima to read. It cuts to Shikishima carrying Akiko through the halls of a hospital. He runs up the stairs to a room, and he finds Noriko injured but alive. Wow. She asks if his war is finally over, and they all embrace. While they celebrate, the camera zooms in on a wound on Noriko's neck. There's a dark bruise that's partially hidden by her clothes, and then there's a cut to part of Godzilla's body sinking to the bottom of the ocean as we see it start to regenerate. The end.
I don't think that they're like particularly zoomed in on the neck. I thought it was just like them hugging and she had a bruise on her neck.
I thought it was like going into the neck and then cuts to Godzilla regenerating, implying a connection between them.
I did not get that.
Oh, okay. I also the the Wikipedia page summary also implies that.
Oh.
So
And it just flew over my head.
well, so I left it out in the thing, but when that city is destroyed and Noriko's presumed dead, then there's another like radio announcement thing that's going over the destruction and tens of thousands have been killed and everything. And then they also say that there are teams that are going around picking up pieces of Godzilla's body. So I think the implication is that people are going to be infected with Godzilla radiation
Interesting.
in some way, similar to atomic bomb fallout.
Well, I see. What a movie.
I could be wrong. What a movie.
What a movie.
Okay, things that stuck out.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't write too many down. Not that things didn't stick out, but it was just like, I don't know, what I think you liked the movie more than I did, at least after we initially watched it.
Yeah.
To me, there's nothing wrong with this. It just all kind of happened to me. And I don't know.
Just seems like you're gonna let yourself get invested in the story.
That's
the
true.
Characters.
'Cause
you just don't care about people being attacked by a giant monster.
I'm not willing to let them in because of my survivor's guilt.
Yeah.
The effects are good.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a great looking movie. It won the Oscar for.
Yeah.
And I'll say I agree that it deserved it because of how small the team was compared to other movies. So I'm glad that was taken into account.
Yeah.
I don't know why the Academy sometimes takes things like that into account and other times they don't. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because who won Best Actor?
For that year?
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr.
No, that was Best Supporting.
Oh, Brennan, the Whale.
Really? For 23?
Yeah.
I thought that was a 22 movie.
Wait.
Okay. I don't remember.
For 2023, Brendan Fraser won for The Whale. This for 2024 Oscars, then Cillian Murphy won for Oppenheimer.
Okay, so that's
what you're talking about?
Yeah, because I mean 2024 Oscars cover 23.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I just think sometimes the Academy does look at the small details that add up.
Mm-hmm.
And other times they're like, nah.
Yeah.
Oppenheimer's the big picture this year.
Mm-hmm.
And I rewatched Guardians 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that. Yeah, because we covered that already on the.
We did.
Yeah. That movie looked great.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything in that movie, I was like, wow, this is impressive.
Yeah.
And I do think it looked better than Godzilla. But Godzilla still looked great, and I appreciate how small of a team was able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was trying to see what other things were nominated in the visual effects thing. So.
While you do that.
Yeah.
What I really appreciated about this Godzilla is it is a classic Godzilla movie.
Yeah.
Like, everything about the Godzilla element of this movie is so hokey. Like, except that initial moment of meeting Godzilla where he's kind of smaller and able to just grab
Mm-hmm.
the people individually, and like that is like actually like, oh, this is kind of scary. Like
Yeah.
he's still huge, but he's not as big as like a Godzilla we've seen before, but he can still cause destruction, and he can kind of get down on this like more personal level because he's physically grabbing you with his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh no, this is cool. As soon as he gets big, everything related to Godzilla is so hokey. The plan to kill him is to sink him into the ocean really fast with whatever
It's a gas.
whatever the
Yeah.
gas was, and then bring him back up really quickly with giant balloons
Mm-hmm.
so that he gets super pressurized and then super depressurized so that he can't come back from that.
Yeah, the balloon engineers are like featured extras in this movie.
Yeah. That is the dumbest idea. But that's kind of what Godzilla is. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, we have this stupid scientific way and convoluted plan to kill this giant thing.
It's impossible situation, and like
Yeah.
we kind of found a workaround for it.
Yeah.
The others that were nominated for visual effects were The Creator, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 1, and Napoleon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I agree. The story is pretty effective for in like the way of getting back to the roots of Godzilla and making it a classic Godzilla movie of like it is rooted in Japan dealing with the aftermath of atomic weapons and the devastation and everything. So,
But what makes it better than this other Godzilla series that is happening
mhm.
is that, like, they take it so seriously and they make it look so nice
Yeah.
that despite it being hokey, it's still sort of like a, oh, no, I like what's happening. Like,
Yeah.
the Godzilla Kong movie,
Mhm.
whichever, not this one that came out just recently, but like the one before it,
Yeah.
Godzilla versus Kong or whatever.
Godzilla X Kong or
Well, I know the current one is Godzilla X Kong with like a subtitle, but that one and then the 2014 Godzilla movie, they look like just a classic, not classic, the typical American big budget feature film.
yeah.
There's no character to it.
Mhm.
Like they put so much thought and heart into making this that the stupid, I'm gonna say stupid, the stupid hokiness of the Godzilla is sort of like acceptable.
Yeah. I think it's because it does this movie especially, and I've seen like one or two other Godzilla movies, but this one especially deals with like the realities of Godzilla. Like I am the person who would kind of enjoy some sort of like where did he come from? Like even just seeing like an egg cracking or something, and then that's where Godzilla happens.
Yep.
But like even if you're not dealing with like those realities in that sense, you are dealing with the fact that like yeah, you have this unknown creature, impossible force that is attacking you at like the worst possible moment
Yeah.
in your country's history, and like the devastation of that, and the when he's attacking the city, and there's like a news crew that's on a nearby roof, and they're narrating everything. We also watched this in the English dub.
Watch the dub, not because we thought it was better, but simply because it started playing that way and I was too lazy to change it.
But like with that narration basically, or like in-universe narration of they're talking about like these are buildings that withstood these bombs and these attacks, and like were symbols of hope for the community, and now they're reduced to nothing. And yeah, so like that stuff I appreciate. The American legendary entertainment version is just like, look at the big monster.
Yeah.
Let it takes away all of the context that makes it impactful. Godzilla as a concept, still cool to look at, so I get that. But you can see the difference, and I think the critical acclaim difference between the versions.
Yeah. Uh, Part of the hokiness of Godzilla, to me, is that and I said this to you, I think Godzilla is a dumb looking thing. And I think that stems from when they originally made it, there was only so much they could do.
Because it's a guy in a suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate that this one, they made Godzilla look as real as possible.
With the texture.
With the texture and everything. He's still a dumb looking thing. Like him walking was so goofy.
They did that. I didn't write it down. So they did that slightly on purpose.
I figured.
To make it an homage to the originals. And a lot of it is like, because there's some stuff that was also, I didn't notice it, but there's some stuff that was also done with like the original miniatures in the style that the original Godzilla would have done.
Yeah.
So that and the intentional movement of the monster is more rooted in tradition and not like what can we do with the technology that we have.
Yeah.
But I agree, like the director intentionally made the design so bottom heavy.
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be like, it's supposed to be a mountain who is moving.
Yeah.
And I get that. But when you see the full body shot, you're just like, he's got a little head up there.
Yeah. Very small head.
Yeah.
And no, I figured that how he looked in this was very specific to say, like, this is, like, we're making him look as real as possible.
This is the top of a nuclear warhead.
But still look like the classic Godzilla.
Yeah.
And, like, I really appreciate that they saw the hokey, dumb-looking Godzilla, and they committed to it. And they said, if we make him look good enough, if we make the story good enough, people will love this.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that. And I don't care about Godzilla. I've never enjoyed the movies, but like it's admirable as like a filmmaker to just like be like, no, this is what Godzilla is.
Yeah.
Like,
that's kind of where my like rating analysis is like, this isn't for me, but I fully appreciate all of the intention that went into it.
Yeah,
and like reading about it also makes me appreciate that.
Last thing I'll say before we get to production facts is I do think if you like Godzilla movies and even parts of this movie, but you're not into like the MCU or superhero films, there's a disconnect because they are the same type of movie. Big amounts of destruction.
Yeah.
Big action scenes. A decent amount of story and heart.
Just a group of guys facing the odds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know you're out there.
That's, maybe. Production facts?
Production facts.
All right. So this premiered at the Shinjuku Toho building on October 18th, 2023, with a release in Japan on November 3rd, which celebrated the franchise's 70th anniversary. Toho International released the film in North America on December 1st, and then the Shinjuku Toho building has a Godzilla head on the outside.
Nice.
And then also on the release day, they had a red carpet event along Godzilla Street in Tokyo with a carpet that was 50.1 meters long, which is Godzilla's height. There's intention in everything. Yeah. This is a 2-hour and 4-minute runtime, and it's rated PG-13. It's got a 99% tomato meter with a 98% popcorn meter. It's got an 81 out of 100 on Metacritic and an A from American Cinema Score audiences. Rotten Tomato consensus says, like both the critic and audience things say, it's a classic addition to the franchise, and the human element keeps the story engaging in scenes even without a giant monster. It did get mixed reviews in Japan. Many critics calling it softly nationalistic, They did praise the performances and the fact that Godzilla is defeated with technology from the time, and that it wasn't just like some. But don't worry, we have a future bomb, or that. Yeah.
We've been working on a hidden secret.
Yeah. Someone said like it didn't contain a digital miracle or something like that. It seems like this director, and I have more info on him in a little bit, but he is a history buff, and he's done a lot of historical films. It seems like the director or the critics are more left-leaning than he is, and often are worried about how nationalistic his movies are. And one critic called it a dangerous view.
It's interesting because it to me felt
Anti-Japan?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's somewhere in the middle. Because of, like, I get that without context, but then also with the context that I have later of what inspired the director, then, like,
Okay.
I don't know. Anyway, there's a lot of praise from within the industry itself, which I feel like we don't often mention. So, like, other Godzilla filmmakers saying that they're jealous that they didn't make this movie.
Yeah.
And then universal praise for the special effects, and it was consistently on lists of best movies of 2023, including from Joel Taylor, who made They Clone Tyrone. So, and so many other Hollywood people, but I like him. So
it's the best Godzilla film that I've seen.
Yes, I would agree with that. Yeah. So the budget of this movie is reportedly between $10 and $15 million.
That's so impressive.
Yes. The director has referenced various outlets reporting these numbers. Like, one of them will say, like, it cost 100 million yen, and he'll be like, no, it was more than that. And then it would say another number, and he's like, it's below that. So it's somewhere between 10 to 15 million.
Yeah.
He has reportedly denied, or like repeatedly denied, that the film cost $15 million. He has often said that it costs less than that, and there's no specific number that's been confirmed by him or by Toho, the production studio. It seems like there was a quote that I'm not going to be able to find again. But I think we talked about this with The Boy and the Heron too, where it was like, I don't know why they're not just sharing specific numbers, but here it is. He said to Movie Maker, I want to say in Toho's defense, the budget was less than 15 million, but that's a pretty high budget film for Japanese production standards. Yeah. So it's very impressive. For the box office, it earned between $113 and $116 million worldwide. $57 million of that is from the U.S. It's the third highest grossing Japanese film of 2023. That's behind The Boy and the Heron and Detective Conan Black Iron Submarine. I guess The Boy and the Heron would be our first.
Yeah, it has a very purposeful American voice dub.
Yeah. Anyway, it's the most successful film in the Godzilla franchise. The previous most successful film was the 2016 Shin Godzilla, which is the last one that they made. And then Toho Studio CEO said that the film benefited from less competition due to strikes. The production timeline, so 2016, Toho releases Shin Godzilla. They're unable to release another live-action Godzilla movie until 2020 due to their contract with Legendary Entertainment, which produces the MonsterVerse, and those are the other Godzilla movies that you were mentioning. In 2019, they form a Godzilla room to come up with new ideas, and they determine that they're not going to create a sequel to Shin Godzilla, and then Takashi Yamazaki is put in charge of the next Godzilla film. And then principal photography is delayed due to the pandemic, so Yamazaki has 3 years to work on the script. February 2022, there's a kaiju film announced to be in the works with the working title Blockbuster Monster Movie. They were correct. And then between March and June 2022, principal photography takes place in Chubu and Kanto. November 2022, the film was revealed as an installment in the Godzilla series. The effects studio Shirogumi spent 8 months working on the film. And then May 2023, post-production is finished. And then July 2023, the movie title is released. and then it releases in November later that year. It's got 43 wins and 63 nominations listed on its IMDb page. The big one that we mentioned is the 2024 Oscar for Best Visual Effects. It's the first non-English film to win. And then Yamazaki is also the second director to win that Oscar because he was also the visual effects supervisor. And the other one was Kubrick for Space Odyssey, I think. And then it won 8 out of its 12 nominations at the 2024 Japanese Academy Awards. It was the most awarded film of that award. And then the 2024 Critics' Choice Super Awards gave Godzilla the Best Villain award.
Wow.
So everyone got something. Yeah, lots of various things for visual effects, mostly. Best film, best foreign film, best screenplay, cinematography, lighting, sound design, and soundtrack. And then the performances, like basically all across the board that I could find, someone won something or was nominated for it.
So it was a successful film.
They done good, yeah.
Real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Just looking up Shin Godzilla.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to show the camera because it would be too hard
Okay.
without having someone in the control room. But if you want to go to IMDb and you look up Shin Godzilla, and you want to go into the image gallery, go to image 166 and 168. There you go.
Yeah.
You get to see that.
I like him.
I don't think that's Godzilla, but he's a
No.
goofy looking guy.
Yeah, I forget who that is, but I do like him.
Yeah.
Yeah, this movie does have a tagline that, when it's translated to English, says post-war Japan from 0 to minus. So.
I knew that that was the name.
Yeah.
Of -1 of they were at 0 after the war, and then Godzilla put them.
Yeah. So this is the 37th film in the Godzilla franchise. It is the 33rd released by Toho, and then it's the 5th in the Reiwa era. It's the 5th in the Reiwa era, which is the newest era of Godzilla expansion. Toho is making massive international business deals while maintaining creative control. So there's one thing that I read that basically they will invest 25% of the production costs or something, but maintain all creative control across international dealings and everything. So they're very much in charge. And then that 2019 Godzilla room also established guidelines for the franchise, including not being able to permanently kill off Godzilla. And then at the 2019 Comic-Con, it was also announced the idea of a co-development with Legendary Pictures in an MCU-like universe. So there's cross-collaboration possible. And it also said that they were allowing filmmakers to reintroduce various political themes that the monsters were, originated in, and then the various monsters themselves. So they specifically mentioned Mechagodzilla could make a comeback. So
in the -1, or just a
from Toho
okay
and company, basically. So if you want him, he's up for grabs, I think.
I mean, we had Mechagodzilla in that one from a few years ago, the Muggy Buggy Brown one.
I don't know if I saw that one.
We did.
Did we?
Yeah, because it was playing at your house.
Oh, it was playing at my house. I didn't put it on. I don't remember any of that movie.
I do.
Sorry, Millie Bobby Brown. Yeah, so then, like we mentioned, the title -1 refers to Japan being reduced to less than 0 after the war, but then it also refers to the fact that it takes place before the original 1954 movie. And then this is written, directed, and visual effects supervised by Takashi Yamazaki. He was appointed to lead the film after his 2019 movie, The Great War of Archimedes, which is a fictionalized historical drama based on a manga. He knows history movies. Yeah. This is his third project featuring Godzilla. One of his previous films featured Godzilla during a dreamlike opening sequence. And he also created the Godzilla The Ride, a Giant Monsters Ultimate Battle attraction for a theme park during the film's pre-production. And that Godzilla design is a variation of the one that's on the ride, because he's been involved with all of it. He was inspired by previous Godzilla films, specifically the original film, and then his personal favorite, which was 2001's Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah Monsters All Out Attack. And then he was also inspired by themes of government instability during the pandemic when he was writing the script, which makes sense. He wanted to avoid the modern day setting, so it wasn't too similar to Shin Godzilla. And then he's also a fan of military history, and he's depicted post-war Japan before, but not with these specific heavy cruisers, so he was excited about that. So he was also influenced by Miyazaki and Steven Spielberg movies, specifically Jaws and War of the Worlds, and Christopher Nolan with Dunkirk. Spielberg praised Yamazaki when they met at an Oscars event. He told him he watched the movie multiple times. He said something like, first I watched it in my house, and then that wasn't enough, so then I went to IMAX, and then the Dolby experience and everything. So he was a fan. And then Nolan said he couldn't think of anyone to make a better response to Oppenheimer. So sure. It's interesting that Oppenheimer and a new Godzilla movie came out in the same year. I wonder what that says about the world. The Godzilla design is a variation on the one from the ride. The digital design allowed for greater detail than the previous versions. They wanted the creature to look like a moving mountain. They also gave the dorsal scales a sharper and more textured appearance. They wanted it to look like the regenerative abilities got chaotic. And then they wanted audiences today to feel the same awe and fear that audiences would have felt in the 50s. And then all 610 visual effects shots were completed by a team of 35 artists. According to the director, they had very good working conditions. They did not have ridiculously long hours. They made sure that everyone was taken care of. They gave them they installed a kitchen in the offices to make sure that people had better facilities and stuff. Apparently this is also from Wikipedia, from various interviews that he's done, but he said within the visual effects industry there's a shorthand of this is a white studio and a black studio, and black studios are the ones that take advantage of people and white ones are the ones that will take care of them, and then the name of their effects studio when translated is literally white studio team or something. So it seems like 35 artists were taken very well care of. They originally didn't intend for the film to take place in water as much as it does, but one of the compositors on the film creates computer-generated water at home as a hobby.
Sure.
And then he showed Yamazaki, and he was impressed enough to rewrite the film climax to take place at sea. So, impressive. Yeah. They also built a 1-to-1 scale replica recreation of the Kyushu J-7W Shinden aircraft. That is the plane that they fly around to distract Godzilla. Only one exists in the world that survived World War II, and it is in Chantilly, Virginia. The film's budget originally didn't allow for the construction of the plane, but costs were offset after they found a museum that was willing to buy the plane after filming. And then the prop plane is now on display at the Tachiari Peace Memorial Museum. Toho only revealed their involvement in the construction after the film was released. Before that, they just made an anonymous donation of an entire replica plane. Sure. So the sound designer, Natsuko Inoue, so sorry about all the pronunciation in this too, but she wanted to recreate Godzilla's original roar using modern sound systems. She felt that the roar was too quiet when they were re-recording it indoors, so they went to the Zuzu Marine Baseball Stadium to record on their speakers, because those were the largest that they could find in that ideal environment. Inoue said it was a very emotional experience to hear that roar amplified in that environment and to kind of feel it in the pit of your stomach, and that sounds really cool. And then also the crew received noise complaints from nearby neighbors. So. There's a black and white version of the film that's titled Godzilla -1 - Color. It was released January 2024 in Japan and the US. It's not just a monochrome wipe or filter of the version of the film, but it's a cut-by-cut adjustment that Yamazaki had them go through as if they were making a brand new film. Yamazaki also proposed the idea that everything in the film is black and white except for Godzilla's atomic breath, but that idea got shot down by the rest of the crew. So, I don't know. I like the idea of atomic breath in color, but I get it.
Atomic breath now in color.
Yeah. And then a novelization of the film was released November 8th, 2023, also written by Yamazaki. It includes an additional scene set on Odo Island that he had suggested but was not allowed to film since Toho didn't let him do pickups.
You can listen to our coverage of that on our new podcast, Year of the Book podcast.
Year of the Book of the movie. And then on November 1st, 2024, it was announced that there is another Godzilla film by Takashi Yamazaki in development. So he's got his hands all over this, and people seem happy with that. So good for him.
Yeah.
That's what I got on Godzilla.
Solid.
There's so many facts about Godzilla.
Oh,
Did you know
yeah.
that?
There's too many Godzillas. I'm brave enough to say it. Do you know how I know there's too many Godzilla movies?
Because I said there were 37 or something.
Well, there's 37, and in one of those 37, Matthew Broderick is in. I like Matthew Broderick.
Yeah.
Matthew Broderick doesn't need to be in a Godzilla movie.
I mean, every franchise, if it lasts 70 years, is going to experience some highs and lows. And I imagine so will Matthew Broderick.
Shall we rate the movie?
Yeah.
Our rating system is out of 4 with 5 options. 0 out of 4 is, oh no, Godzilla's coming. I don't know, I was trying something.
That's something, yeah.
1 out of 4 is it was a movie. 2 is well made or enjoyable. 3 is enjoyable and technically good. 4 is Oscar worthy.
Mm-hmm.
I gave it a 3. And I think that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the right rating.
I've been going back and forth on my rating between a 2 and a 3.
Because it is so technically good.
It is very technically good.
And there are parts that were enjoyable.
Yeah. My initial reaction after watching the movie was just 2.
Yeah.
Because it is a classic Godzilla story, but also it's a classic Godzilla story. And there wasn't anything about it. Like, I could appreciate everything that was visually in front of me, but there wasn't anything about it that I was immediately sitting there that I was like, that was about what I expected, you know? So, I don't know. But, yeah, like, reading about it, I appreciate all the technical aspects that go into it and the intention and everything.
I'll say, I mean, so much of what I was saying already, it's like, it is a classic Godzilla story, but they took it so seriously.
Yeah.
Is why. And after watching so many terrible kaiju movies with Mystery Science Theater and seeing how bad they can be.
That's true.
Then, yeah.
Yeah. I am willing to give it a 3. I don't think it'll stick with me on my list of favorite 3s, but
No.
that's fine.
But I do think it is a 3.
Yeah. All right. So it's got a 3.
It's got a 3 for us, dog. Other movies that we've watched recently, not from 2023, a good amount.
Yeah.
Um,
We were at various places for the holidays.
Yeah.
So we watched many movies.
but together, we watched a 2025 movie, Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance Most Foul.
Yes.
It's a great movie.
I am a big fan of that franchise. That's why Godzilla missed me. I was too busy watching Wallace and Gromit.
There weren't enough robotic pants.
Where are the penguins?
If Godzilla had put on a red glove on his head, he would have been like, who is
Who's
that?
that? That's my villain of the year. Feathers McGraw.
Yeah. So that was a fun movie.
Yeah.
It's very good.
Would recommend.
Wallace and Gromit's good.
Mm-hmm.
Thought the
Hot
new
take.
thought the new one was solid.
Yeah. It's a fun one. If you're already a fan,
Yeah.
it's fun. It's what you want it to be.
It rewrites some of the history a little bit.
A tiny bit.
A tiny bit.
Yeah.
But it's still fun.
Yeah.
But why would they do that?
Why would you change perfection?
Yeah. So we watched that.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we watched other things.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Watched the classic Christmas movies of Bridget Jones' Diary and Die Hard.
Watched Carry On.
Another Christmas classic.
I watched The Holdovers recently
Yes.
again. It's a great movie. It's a 2023.
Yep.
Probably sticking by it.
Yeah.
The best movie from 2023.
Mm. We'll have to do another roundup at some point and see how our standings have changed.
Truly, Oppenheimer does not.
Just falls off my radar.
And Paul Giamatti should have won Best Actor. He just put so much into that character.
Yeah.
Like, emotionally, how he talks, how he moves.
Mm-hmm.
What Cillian Murphy do? He was a little sad boy, little sad guy because he's made the thing that killed a bunch of people. And he was like, oh, I killed people. Little sad boy.
And become death or whatever.
Who cares?
Give it to Paul. All right.
Go ahead and follow us on places.
Yeah.
Like we said. If you leave questions or comments, we'll respond to it on our other podcast, the VHS podcast.
Virtual House Sessions.
And see you next time.
Yep. Bye.